Wow.
This
Okay.
Okay.
No.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to call the meeting to order for Monday, April 21st. The first item on the agenda are the meeting minutes.
motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 24th.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Very
Easily just done.
The next item are the expenditures for April 21st, total of $448,969.69. Wow, that's a big Sean's Lawns invoice. What's that one for?
That's actually not the 400,000.
Yeah.
So the 400,000 is for their work since the last pay period, which I think covers about 6 weeks. And then the invoice number 4 was an invoice that was missed that concluded the sewer work. So we had actually paid the final invoice. This small one had just slipped through the cracks, but it doesn't change the amount. They're paid the full contract amount under the sewer work. And this is just another iteration of the main contract work, the invoice number 18.
So I just point out that this is a really good thing, this project. So one is planned, the orange, and the blue is actual.
Yeah, that's
It's
here.
in your photographs.
And I'll
Can we finish this though first?
Yes.
Let's just go.
save that for
I got
my report.
confused. I thought that graph was about the.
Yeah, I thought so
No, no, no.
too.
In the pictures, it's
I'm easily distracted
Yeah,
tonight.
okay.
I'll go over that.
So motion to approve the expenditures as provided in the 421 report.
I guess I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I want to first.
You guys have to work in tandem.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Because I either one or
Yeah,
the
we're
other.
gonna mix it up next time.
Okay, what's next?
Resolution?
Resolutions. So we have a resolution for evaluation plus for $10,000. Is this a guaranteed maximum price or?
Yes.
And this is for what parcel or for what they already did?
This is really to look at access to
Oh, okay.
64, 68, and an update of a previous appraisal. So it's two separate. That's the combined sum.
So 7,500 total?
No, 10,000 total.
Okay. But there's only one appraisal?
It's one new appraisal and one update
Okay.
to an existing appraisal.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out their billing here. So it's fee for preparation of the appraisals is 7,500.
Mm-hmm.
The fee for preparation of summary appraisals. So is it a summary and
What we're doing is it's the summary appraisals, and there would be two of them since it's two separate properties that we're looking at.
Okay.
So it adds up to 7,500, and then the appraisal update is 2,500, which I think is listed elsewhere.
Each? Yeah, I guess I
There are
don't
two.
see the
This-
10,000 total.
Oh, it's this one.
Oh, the
It's
second
the
one,
March
okay.
25th letter.
But there's two separate
Yeah.
proposals.
2,500, okay. And then this is, okay, but this says, oh, sorry, thank you.
Because we are not
Not doing.
doing the
trial.
second
Okay,
part of it.
Okay.
That is
so that's 7,500, okay. And then plus the 2,500 for this one, okay. Let's, okay. And then it's the reappraisal of, and what's the second one even for that?
what was the
205 Valley
205 Valley? Yeah. So that's the car wash.
Okay. Okay.
And if that's no longer needed, we can still approve
I
the
think we're good.
resolution and just not execute the second
I
appraisal.
think we're good.
Or
Epic moment.
Here you go.
I move we accept this.
nothing I can do.
I move we accept this resolution.
Seconded?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, consultant report, you're up.
Okay, get right into it. All right. So it's been a little over, well, actually probably 4 weeks since I've last given an update on what's going on down at the East Parcel. Since our last meeting, our security trailer was relocated about 10 feet north out of the way of the road work currently being progressed.
Can I ask you a question? What's this?
That is a catch basin. So that
Storm drain.
there's the, yeah, so
That
this,
is huge.
the back is where the curb would be. There's some other pictures where you can actually see curb that's been installed.
Oh, you see it's
That's
great.
the elevation of the roadway.
Got
So what is missing from this picture,
you. Yeah.
they've put a little topsoil around the backside, and then there'll be pavement in front. So that'll, as they get there. So that's why it looks a little wonky. Catch basins are kind of popping out of the ground every so often. But for the trailer, Joan and I went down and packed up a bunch of things. So there's some documentation and supplies that will be removed from the trailer and relocated to Village Hall for storage. If desired, I did get a quote from Advanced POS to relocate the server equipment that's in the trailer to a weatherproof enclosure, which would allow us to just completely get rid of the trailer. And I think the village clerk actually mentioned that we could, if we so choose, designate the trailer for village surplus, and there's the possibility that someone could take it off our hands for a couple $100.
There's actually a surplus sale. Oh, no, that's a tax lien sale.
They do it, yeah, they do it
okay.
periodically whenever they have, a couple of vehicles or things that, so they could certainly do one if that's the direction we want to go.
You can move in. Are you waiting for it?
Yeah.
Put your tenants in there.
Um,
Found a spot.
Okay, and as far as other work, pretty much all drainage and water main utilities, excepting about 150 feet around the location of the new and existing walls up and around the former viaduct ramp have been completed. Contractors put in about 3/4 of the light pole foundations, conduit, and pole boxes. They might even be a little bit further ahead of that number. And as of the end of last week, about 400 feet of granite curbing had been installed along the south side of Continental Street. I think there's a couple of photos that you can kind of flip through and see some of the electrical, utility and curbing work. Over the next couple of weeks, the contractor is going to be continuing to progress the curbing. They will likely start to form up and pour some of the sidewalks as they move along. Their subcontractor will begin pulling the cabling through the underground conduit, basically connecting the wires to each of the pole foundations that have been installed. And they're hoping by early to mid May, or within the next 2 to 3 weeks, to start doing some base course paving in select locations as they get the curbing installed on both sides of the road, so that they can start kind of buttoning up that work. And as well, they've done some preliminary work in the area of the Barnhart, the properties where, we acquired the property, and they're putting in some, some driveway curb cuts. So they've completely regraded and leveled that area. And as they move along with the curbing, they'll start getting the driveway curb cuts installed at those locations.
So, no conduit in the slab. Is everything overhead?
No, it is underground.
Where are the conduits?
The
I don't
conduits,
see any.
well, where that stuff is all wrapped up in
That's
black.
it?
Those are sticking up through
Yeah,
the
right,
slab.
right. Oh, because they just poured it.
And yeah, not pictured. You might be able to see it. I don't know if this was one of the last pictures.
April's not due.
This is where those metal poles and the bollards are. There's a pull box that's about 5 feet away from that slab. That is just really a working slab for where the meter and
Right.
the electrical panel. So, that's where they would go to turn on the power to the lights once they're all installed, wired up.
So this isn't the main distribution feed for the entire site,
Just the lighting.
just the lighting.
That would be just
Got
the
it.
lighting. And so, for example, included in this work are a couple of empty conduit runs that
Good.
go to just like a
Next
pull
question,
box.
yeah.
So when the courts and skate park go in, rather than have to, they'll have a dedicated conduit that they can just run cable from that box to light the tennis courts, to
So
light the
they're gonna
promenade.
run up on the west side of the new road. When they put in the conduits, they'll come up from that
For
river side of this new road.
you're talking about the
Yeah, in other words, they'll come up around the road and then come up.
no. What we have put in under this project
Uh-huh.
is the conduit. Some of it, leapfrogs from side to side of the road. It's just where the lights need to be.
Right,
For the most part, I think it's on the east side behind the sidewalk. the
I'm
majority.
talking about for the,
So for when the future fields come into
Yeah.
play, we actually will have an empty pull box and an empty run of conduit that's on the west side of the roadway
west side of
already.
the roadway, right,
So they have all they need to do is run conduit from that pull box
all the
to
way up.
their light poles for the
Uh-huh.
courts or the skate park. And then they run the actual cabling all the way through that conduit back to the
to the
meter.
back.
Right, so they
Got
don't.
it.
There's no trenching beyond the west side.
No
of the
trenching
roadway,
in anything new that we put in.
other than what the contractor needs to build to put in the courts and the skate
Yeah.
park. Right, so that similarly for water, there are water service. So
So
No.
we're not stubbing that out. We're gonna pave over and then they're gonna cut the new pavement. Is that what you're saying?
no. We installed it on the west side of the roadway
Oh, okay, got
so
it.
that we don't have to.
Got it.
Right, they can just have a pull box or a water valve that they can tie directly into.
Mhm.
Limits all the work to that side.
And all the hydrants are down in that area.
Their hydrants are, it's like 250
Yeah,
feet or
okay.
something on either side of the road. Yep. So I'll just do a quick summary of construction cost of where we're at. Effectively through this pay rec number 18, I believe we're at about $8 million in work completed to date, not including the retainage that's being held, which leaves about $2 million worth of work remaining. That $2 million is more or less split between $475,000 for lighting work. That's the actual poles, the lights, the cables. $450,000 for sidewalks and curbing. $575,000 for the paving of the roadway, the crosswalks, the striping. About $400,000 for fencing, guide rail, and then finish work. And about $100,000 in just miscellaneous drainage and utility work that needs to be completed. That's also accepting any additional change orders for other work that needs to be completed. But that effectively makes up the $2 million plus about $1.2 million in retainage, the balance of the work. And then, looking at this chart where you have, projected out to a finish date in May versus where they're at, which is, they've, what's been billed to date is through the end of March. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap, right? They really need to be, or we really should be seeing about, invoices in the ballpark of $1 million in order for them to hit that, end of May, which I would say is a reasonable target to wrap up the job at this point.
And for paving and striping, that includes the shared lanes.
Yeah, and that's literally probably the last day is just
Okay.
a day of strip. The paving work, it's a big number, almost 600,000. But it's something, they probably pave the whole thing in less than a week.
Okay.
Right? Because it's just throwing it down, compacting it.
And then fencing, that includes the perimeter around the DPW.
That is separate.
Okay.
That is something that we have a
That's a
separate
different one.
contract
Okay.
with the
And that was
subcontractor.
what was that one, 100,000?
That was
Yeah.
at 75,000. And we'll direct them to put in fencing in certain locations.
Once this is done.
Once this is done and before we're at the point where we need to open the roads, likely sometime this summer, I'll bring the contractor out there, try and lay some things out and
So
and
when
see
they,
what works in
when
the
they put
schedule.
their string down, paint for all of their pavement markings, is that when you'll bring people out to look at?
No, I'm actually going to probably set something up for maybe right after Memorial Day weekend, or around somewhere in that time frame. I'll set up, 1 or 2 days and time frames to, re-invite the board of trustees, any LDC planning board members that want to go out, because at that point we'll likely have most of the curbing, some of the
Yeah.
sidewalk. I mean, you'll actually be able to see, even if it's not paved, like here's the road.
Oh, okay, so it won't be
So
markings on the new asphalt?
No, that's literally one of the
Yeah.
very last things they do.
So
Yeah.
then what is the fencing that they're putting in?
Fencing is, there is fencing that goes along, like from debris to the existing retaining wall at the siding tracks that we covered with anti-graffiti paint.
Okay.
There's some fencing that
And
goes
that's
on.
permanent?
It is permanent
Okay.
chain link fencing.
Okay, so along the tracks.
Yep, along the
And where
track.
else?
It's mostly along the tracks.
Okay, so from like one side all the way along.
Right.
That's 475.
No. The actual fencing is probably closer to maybe 200,000 or less.
Okay,
Then there's guide rail. There's guide rail at both ends of where the wall is, right? For, so the vehicles
cars,
don't.
yeah, okay.
Um,
The steel stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
And then, finish work is they've got road signs. There's,
Yeah, okay.
things like, it's a bunch of little things. The actual
What are they,
striping of the road.
road signs are they putting in?
Well, speed limit,
Yeah, okay.
stop, things like
Okay.
that. It's very basic what,
Okay.
road signs are putting up.
So we're gonna need to confirm also then, I guess we can do this once it's done, like street signs.
I'm sure we'll have a drawing that shows all of that anyway, right?
There are, yes, within
When you
the
look at the drawings.
contract documents, there are, I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head if the actual street signs are in there, because I don't know that it's been 100% determined.
Finalized, yeah.
Continental Street is just an extension, but I know, Clinton Street, is it just gonna be Clinton Street?
Yeah.
Or,
I think it should just be Clinton Street.
so, which is fine.
Dan, why do we need guardrail? Is there still like a
Well-
difference in height between the road and the
Right.
rest of the site?
So in some areas, like where the new roadway or reconstructed roadway is like at the top of the wall, there's concrete barrier. But then as the roadway transitions away, the concrete barrier goes away, there's just fencing, there still needs to be a transition from concrete to guide rail to nothing.
We're gonna look at that in detail.
On both sides. It's fairly
Can't
standard.
picture it.
Like if you
got
look
pictures of
at
it.
Beacon Avenue Bridge, for example, is
Yeah.
a good, you've got, even though you've got sidewalk and a bridge parapet, at either end, you've got like a bridge rail that kind of goes down, because it's kind of the area where the bridge stops and then the roadway embankment begins. It's really just to prevent if a car were to hop up onto the sidewalk or something, it doesn't go down the embankment. So that's exactly what that's for. So we'll jump down a little bit. I just want to talk about our 3 grants. The first would be the Climate Smart grant.
This one.
Yep, that relates to this drawing here. So the DEC, we had heard back from them several weeks back that they had essentially approved our kind of phasing of the DPW. They needed some time to update, the contract in their system, which would include an extension of time to do the work. I don't know. I have to check in with Anthony to see if there's an actual, ready to sign on the dotted line, which would be, we'll need approval from the village board of trustees to essentially finalize that base scope that's shown in that drawing. It's more or less to pave the eastern half of the DPW, so from kind of that driveway on Continental Street to the east, as well as erect the covered metal structure to park vehicles under, as well as whatever drainage would be necessary to install so that the site is properly, draining, and some proper gates and things at the entrances. So to effectively allow us to recoup the entirety of the $2 million grant that was awarded to the village.
So I'm sorry, you are gonna pave it? Is that what I just heard? Or you-
Correct. Yep.
All
All
of
of
the finish, or are you gonna leave it down a little bit?
No. This would be effectively to finish what would be the back of house of the DPW. And then
When we go into construction, is it not gonna?
well, I mean, are there areas that they might have to trench through to put in some of the other utilities? Sure.
I'm just thinking if we put the first lift in and not leave the second lift until we finish.
I mean, that's certainly something that can be factored into
Think about
the
it.
plans.
Yeah.
But I think the important part is really getting to a point where we have the
Usable
authorization to
space.
proceed, because the next steps are going to be re-engaging either with the architect or a contractor to, get actual costs to do this work. And that's where we can look at, possibly adding some things in, or, where we need to, carve it down a little bit. So that's one thing that,
And that's a $2 million grant
so that was a $2 million grant.
with any match?
The match is also
Thirty-
$2 million, but most of the match we have already spent
With the design?
with the design
Okay, got
and some other work.
Okay.
So it's more or less the money that we're spending would come back almost,
Yeah.
I don't want to say instantly, but
Okay,
we're spending the grant money,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
to finish
okay.
this phase portion. So the second grant we'll talk about quickly is the Economic State Development Grant for the Continental Street Bridge. The state is, basically requesting formal notice from the village to withdraw from the $2 million grant and reapply when the project is closer to a point that it will be advanced. They're supportive of this project, but they cannot just hold funds indefinitely. I think we've already asked for 2 or maybe even 3 extensions of time, which have been granted. But they're at a point where they can't continue granting extensions unless there's significant advances.
What is the money specifically for?
Is specifically for physical construction of
Physical.
bridge.
And we don't get it back till it's done.
I mean, a very, very
Ah.
small portion is for design, but it was like, 10%, 9%.
Okay, got
it. So the village has until May 2nd to respond, and at which point the state will just rescind the funds.
Should we
anyway.
respond? Is it the polite thing to do?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we should just
Yeah.
tell them to do that.
Well, that happens before. Well, does it happen before our next meeting? It looks like it does.
Yeah,
May
well, no, and
2nd.
this is really for I'll talk to Anthony.
Oh, it's not a.
This is something I think can just come from the
Yeah.
mayor. I don't think it needs an actual resolution
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's just hey, things changed. We thought we were ready, but when we're at the point where the bridge is back and there's, a more realistic timeline for completion, the indication from the state is reapply, and, if there's grant money there, they'd love to see that project move forward.
And what's the third one?
So lastly is just a quick update on our LWRP grant, which is for the park and Promenade Skate Park. We finally, a couple of weeks ago, got the actual grant contract back from the state. Anthony is working with our grant writer to get the pages that need to be signed. There's some things that the village has to do on the back end to make sure accounts are set up, to process reimbursements and things. But the only issue here is that even once we sign it and send it back to the state, they say to allow up to about 2 months for us to get the executed contract back. And we can't submit anything for reimbursement until we get the signed contract back. So if all goes well, hopefully we would get it back, much quicker than that. But seeing how long it took even just to get the actual contract we submitted, I think, everything between October and November of last year. So fingers crossed that, things go a little bit quicker now that it's just a matter of, the state signing it and getting it back to us. But, that's something that I'm keeping track of. Expenses we have that are eligible for reimbursement. I think we're in the ballpark of about 300 or so thousand, or between 300 and 500. So it's just kind of stacking that up, right? And it just means that once we are ready to reimburse, there'll be a larger kind of tranche that comes through in the first reimbursement, and then it'll kind of move down to a slow trickle. But that's it for the updates on the grants. And then one last item, I did send around about 2 weeks ago. I was approached by a project manager. I forget the name of the contractor, but they're effectively managing a project for the New York Power Authority.
This is the line down the Hudson River.
Correct. So Clean Path New York. They're the phase that they're at is they're scouting potential locations where they can stage large amounts of submarine cables to run a power line in the Hudson from.
Why that's, I don't understand.
The East Parcel?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no access to the
Well,
river.
true. There's no direct access, but I mean
They just
they
need
found it
places.
they found it just from satellite imagery and said, hey, we need about 2 acres. It's kind of out. It looks like, with the discussion I had with the project manager was it looks like you've got other contractors and things using this. So they figured that's a good place to start, right?
And what was their offer?
They didn't make an offer. I essentially left it with, we would certainly be open to exploring this opportunity. But we would certainly have to negotiate any kind of, whatever it is,
Didn't your
payments
email say
or,
you threw out a number?
I gave him a range.
What was the range you gave?
I gave him a range of about 10,000 to 50,000 per acre per month. And that is just based on historical usage of the site. It's quite a large range. This project would be occupying that space for, he said, about 2 to 3 years. But the stage that they're at right now is, they've looked at many other properties up and down, the Hudson River. And they're looking at what probably fits within their budget. And then depending on where their work locations are. So he mentioned that around early May, he'd reach back out if this seemed like a more ideal spot than any others that they've found. We'll continue, or we'll pick up negotiations from there.
I'm particularly interested in this well because I have a similar offer probably coming our way, a piece parcel property, much like what they want to do with it, from a contractor that I have
For the East Parcel.
for the East Parcel as a lay down area.
That you have,
I'm building this railroad bridge at Sing Sing, and I'm potentially looking at the Metro North siding that is directly across the street or down towards the river from Continental, straight ahead. There's a Metro North siding out there, railroad siding.
on the east side of the tracks or west side of the tracks?
That would be on the east side of the tracks.
Okay, but that's Metro North.
Yes, I have Metro North's permission to use it, but I need to construct on the east parcel property.
I think we would have to talk about this separately.
Yes, it would have to be separate. I'm not even sure it's happening.
Yeah, so let's not even go there, because there's
But I
probably conflict of interest disclosure type
Yes,
stuff
exactly,
that we also have to deal with there. So I think we should not even go into that right now. But it is interesting to benchmark this amount of money in light of other potential uses.
2 years is a
Yeah.
long time.
2 years is a long time,
Well,
But it is a good bench.
but it is a very good benchmark, yeah. 200K or 100K a month,
Best case scenario.
best case, yeah.
sure. There's, like I said, there's a range.
Yeah.
But we can discuss further as
Okay.
needed. And like I said, there will be, there's really nothing to do at this point until they reach back out and say, hey, we think this is a possibility. And let's get into the numbers.
Yeah,
So,
let's not spin our wheels.
We don't even know if the project's going to
Correct.
happen given the current political climate.
So with that, as of right now, our next meeting is scheduled for next week, April 28th. I don't know if we want to just hold our normal schedule if we want to, cancel that meeting.
May
and-
12th would be the meeting after that.
Correct, so it'd be basically a 3-week jump to the next meeting. I don't know what works with everyone's schedules. I know we're starting to get into,
So we have one on the 28th and then the 12th? would be the-
12th,
And then what's the one after that?
that's probably the 12th and the 26th.
26th.
I
Oh,
think it's-
26th is Memorial Day.
26th is Memorial Day.
So we'll
Um,
probably skip that one. So then
I have to open up my,
we could do the 5th and then, no.
hold on, let me just
Okay,
open up
okay.
the,
The 19th.
let me just open up the actual calendar
Okay.
and see what the, before we start.
We're gonna get 22
Making,
emails.
Hey Dan, when is the roadway supposed to be complete?
He said
Is that
May.
Benji?
Well, it's, I don't have a
Estimate, you said May.
true complete, this is based on, my estimate. It'd be easier to track as the contractor continues to get curbing and sidewalk,
May.
can see what their
Benji, we have-
Just
production
tells
is,
you,
but
just say the
May.
answer.
Let's
Thank
call
you.
it May for now.
But like, would instead of meeting next week, would it make sense to go to the site next week? I mean, it's the end of April, like we should be seeing pretty much almost complete stuff, right?
Well, depends on your point of view. We need to go into executive and talk about this, Benji.
Let's decide on
Oh,
meeting
okay.
dates. Okay, so right now, when are the meeting dates?
Meeting dates right now are it does have May 12th and May 26th, so I guess we missed that one. So we'll have to.
Okay, so do we want to shift it up to the 5th and the 19th? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think actually we probably, then it's 2 weeks,
I'm
2
sorry,
weeks,
what
2
were the
weeks.
dates did you say, May?
Yeah.
I got May 12th and 26th.
Yeah, but I guess is the 26th
That's
is
And
Memorial?
that's Memorial Day.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 5 and 19 works. for me.
Okay,
Okay, so let me
that
just
should work for
mark
me
that
too.
in here quickly.
Yeah, okay.
So if there can be some
And
changes.
I'll adjust because I think I've pre-sent out calendar invites for all of
You
these.
did.
So I will cancel the 28th. I will send, and I will adjust the 12th and the 26th to the 5th and the 19th.
Okay.
Cinco de
And we can go out for margaritas after our meeting.
Before. No, after.
Okay.
Well, it's Mexican independence from Spain, so I'm not gonna celebrate.
And
Well, okay.
with
Well, for me-
that,
So that,
Oh, I motion we go into executive.
okay.
session.
seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey, Justin, let me just give you a ring on your office phone.
That would be
How about
great.
Benji?
Yeah, thanks.
What about Benji though?
Benji, do you want me to try and conference you in?
Sure.
Let me just stop
Be a
recording.
good idea.